My dear brothers and sisters, I want you to take a deep breath for a moment. Just pause, because today we're talking about something that touches every heart, no matter who you are, where you're from, or what stage of life you're in. We're talking about the first 40 days after death. What happened to your soul? And I know that just hearing those words can make the heart tremble a little. It feels close, it feels real, and it should, because every single one of us has someone we've loved and lost. A parent, a grandparent, a friend, a child, a spouse, or maybe you've been living with the fear of losing someone. But I want you to know something from the very beginning. Islam does not speak about death to scare you. It speaks about death to comfort you, to guide you, and to remind you that Allah never abandons a soul, especially not in its most vulnerable moment. We hear 40 days and people begin to think of stories, beliefs, cultural traditions, and things passed down that may or may not be true. But what we do know for sure is this: the moment a believer leaves this world, something deeply beautiful and deeply meaningful begins. And it is not darkness, it is not chaos, it is not confusion, it is transition, it is movement. It is the beginning of a journey back to the one who created you with love and who has been waiting for you with mercy. I want you to imagine something. Imagine a person lying in their last moments. Maybe it was someone you loved. Maybe it's someone you still cry for when no one is watching. You remember their last breath. You remember their stillness. You remember the silence that filled the room. But here's the truth. The moment you saw silence, the unseen world woke up. Angels came, not imagined angels, not symbolic ones, real ones. Angels that have been assigned since the beginning of time. Angels that never get tired. Angels that know exactly what to do. Angels that have witnessed birth, life, death, and everything in between. At that moment, when the soul begins to leave the body, the believer is not alone. You might feel alone as you stand next to that bed or at that grave, but they are not alone. Allah sends His helpers, His protectors, His honored messengers. And for the believer, these angels come with ease, with gentleness, with warmth. The Prophet told us that the angels who come to take the soul of the believer have faces shining like the sun. They're not frightening, they're comforting. They don't yank the soul out, they invite it. They call it lovingly. They say, "Oh peaceful soul, come out to the mercy of Allah." And I want you to sit with that for a second, because many of us, especially in the US, especially in fast-paced lives full of stress and worry, we imagine death as this painful, harsh moment. But for the believer, it is the moment Allah honors them. It's the moment Allah says, "You struggled enough, you cried enough, you carried enough, come back to me." Some people ask, where does the soul go right away? Others wonder what the first day is like, the first night, the first week, the first 40 days. And while some details belong to the unseen world that only Allah fully knows, what we do know is this: nothing about the believer's journey is random. Everything is planned, everything is witnessed, and everything is held in the mercy of Allah. When the soul is taken, it is wrapped in a beautiful covering. Think of the softest fabric you've ever felt. Think of the most comforting blanket. Think of fragrance. Think of light. Now imagine something better than all of that put together. That is how Allah treats the soul of the believer. The angels then carry it upward, passing through the gates of heaven, and the soul is greeted, recognized, welcomed, like someone returning home after a long, difficult trip. Imagine someone you haven't seen in years, and the moment you walk through the door, everyone says, "You made it. We've been waiting for you." That is the welcome of the believer's soul. And in these first hours, first days, first moments, the soul experiences more clarity than it ever did while alive. You and I are walking around with veils over our eyes. We can't see the entire reality, but the moment the soul leaves the body, the veils fall. It sees angels. It sees the truth of this world. It sees who was real and what was illusion. The believer sees the kindness of Allah in ways they never could while living. And yes, the body is placed in the grave. And yes, the people walk away. But the soul does not sit in darkness, abandoned. The righteous soul receives company, light, peace. The grave expands. It becomes wide like a garden, not narrow like a prison. And the soul rests. It breathes for the first time in years, maybe decades. It feels no stress, no fear, no sadness, no deadlines, no exhaustion. Imagine never feeling exhaustion again. Imagine never fighting another inner battle. That is what the believer begins to taste. And the first 40 days, they are part of that adjustment, that settling, that movement from one world to another. They are part of the soul recognizing its new reality. In our cultures, we attach rituals to those days, but in the unseen world, what matters most is the condition of the heart the person lived with. Did they love Allah? Did they try? Did they repent? Did they keep getting back up after falling? Allah does not look for perfection. Allah looks for sincerity. And I want to tell you something, especially for those who lost someone recently. Your loved one did not disappear. The soul does not vanish. It transitions. It continues. And Allah keeps them in His care in a way you cannot fully understand yet. Sometimes people ask, do they know we're crying? Do they know we miss them? Are they aware of our prayers? Many scholars explain that the deceased can feel the mercy that comes from your dua, that your sadaqah reaches them, that your good deeds done on their behalf are like gifts delivered to their soul. Imagine someone you love receiving a package in the next world, opening it and feeling relief, feeling joy because you remembered them. So those first days after death are not empty, they are not silent. The believer is surrounded by the mercy of the most merciful. And even if the world forgets them, Allah does not. And as we continue, I want us to walk slowly together through this journey. I want us to explore what happens next, how the soul settles, what it experiences, and how we, still living here, still struggling here, can support them, benefit them, and stay connected to them in ways that are allowed, meaningful and comforting. Because this journey didn't end when they left this world. And your connection to them didn't end either. There is more to understand, more to uncover, more that brings peace to the heart. And in the next part, we will go deeper into what the soul faces as it moves into the next stage, the next moments, and the next realities of its path back to Allah. I want you to come with me gently now as we step a little further into this unseen journey. We left off at the moment where the soul has been taken with honor, wrapped with care, and carried with dignity. And I want you to imagine that soul now, settled, calming, realizing that the weight of the world has finally lifted. Not partially, not a little, completely. For the first time, the soul is not pretending to be strong. It doesn't have to. There are no masks, no burdens, no roles to play. Every wound the person carried, every heartbreak they hid, every disappointment they swallowed quietly, all of that begins to ease, like a heavy coat slipping off the shoulders after years of wearing it. And as the soul adjusts, angels continue to surround it. Angels who never forget their task. Angels who don't leave for a second. Angels who saw this person's entire life. Every moment of sincerity, every hidden charity, every night they cried to Allah, every time they forgave when it was hard, every time they chose faith over fear, and the soul begins to see what we could never see in this dunya, that nothing was wasted, nothing was ignored, nothing was unseen by Allah. Even the tears that fell in secret were counted. Even the silent patience that nobody appreciated was written. Even the battles fought quietly inside the heart, Allah knew them. And now the soul begins to taste the reward for all that unseen effort. You know those moments in life when you felt invisible, when you tried to be strong but no one noticed, when you were kind but nobody thanked you, when you loved people who didn't always love you back, and you thought maybe it didn't matter. But in that next world, the soul finally understands it always mattered. Part of settling in those first days is this deep recognition, this unveiling. The soul sees Allah's justice, Allah's mercy, Allah's gentleness, and the believer begins to feel safe, truly safe, the kind of safety we never fully feel in this world, because here everything is temporary, uncertain, fragile, but there, the soul finally knows it is held, protected, valued. And while the soul is entering this new reality, the body is placed in the ground. And I know that moment hurts the living. I know, because many of us have stood there watching the dirt fall, feeling like our own hearts were being buried too. But while the living feel that ache, the soul is not experiencing what the body looks like. The soul is not trapped the way our fears imagine. The soul is not cold, not alone, not abandoned. If the person lived with faith, even small faith, even weak faith, even imperfect faith, their grave becomes a place of rest, a place of ease, a place that expands with light. You know, Allah doesn't expect us to be angels. He knows we're human. He knows we make mistakes every day. He knows we break, we forget, we fall. But He loves the believer who keeps turning back, who keeps trying. That is the believer who is honored in the grave. And as the soul settles, something beautiful begins to happen. The soul becomes aware of the du'as being made for them. It becomes aware of children praying for a parent, a spouse giving charity on their behalf, a friend making dua during a quiet moment. And even though the world continues moving, the soul feels that love. Some scholars explain that your dua reaches them like a breeze of mercy, a comfort, a gift. Imagine that. Imagine the person you miss, your mother, your father, your child, your husband, your wife, your friend, receiving comfort because of something you whispered in prayer. Imagine their grave brightening. Imagine their heart being lifted. Imagine Allah saying to them, your loved one remembered you. This is why we don't stop praying for them. This is why we keep giving sadaqah on their behalf. This is why we forgive them when we remember something painful, because all of it becomes light in their new world. And I want to tell you something many people forget. The soul doesn't immediately forget the dunya. Those first days, the soul is aware in a different way, not in the way humans imagine, not in a way that disturbs or hurts them, but in a way where they can recognize the mercy being sent their way. They can sense when their loved ones are calling on Allah for them. And that connection brings them relief. The Prophet said that when a believer is buried, their deeds come to protect them. Their Quran, their charity, their kindness, their patience, these things appear as comfort, as companions. Imagine your good character becoming a friend in the grave. Imagine your acts of mercy becoming a shield. Imagine your hidden worship becoming a source of light. And slowly, the soul begins to settle into this new existence, like someone moving into a new home after leaving behind years of difficulty. It takes time, it takes adjustment. There is silence, yes, but it's not empty. There is waiting, yes, but it's not hopeless. There is reflection, yes, but it's peaceful. And the angels continue to visit, they continue to guard, they continue to carry Allah's commands with perfection. They do not get late, they do not make mistakes. Nothing about this transition is careless or forgotten. Meanwhile, you, still in this world, might be going through waves of grief. And I want you to hear this from a place of softness. Grief is mercy. Grief is love that has nowhere physical to go. Grief is the heart remembering. But grief is not a sign that Allah abandoned you. Grief is not a punishment. Sometimes grief is the rope that ties your dua to the next world, and Allah sees every tear. And as the soul continues this early part of its journey, something else happens too. The soul begins to understand the true value of time. Every second in the dunya suddenly becomes clear. The things that mattered and the things that never mattered stand apart like night and day. The soul sees the truth behind everything it once struggled with. And this is part of why we are told to reflect on death, not to freeze in fear, but to live better, to love better, to focus on what truly matters. Because when the soul leaves, it doesn't carry your money, your house, your degrees, your achievements, your followers. It carries your heart. It carries your sincerity. It carries your faith. And as we move forward, we will step deeper into what the soul encounters in the next stages, the next conversations, the next moments of this journey. There is more unfolding, more unseen realities, more mercy that surrounds the believer as they continue their path toward their final eternal home.